This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for May 13th, 2023. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. Epstein meets with the CIA. That is right. Epstein, the child sex trafficker, met with the CIA. This was back in 2014. We know all of this because the Wall Street Journal released Jeffrey Epstein's calendar. The agent in question was William Burns, who was the director of the agency at the time. Several other prominent officials also had meetings, but maintained that the meetings were either professional or social. We know a few names that were among his clients, but I think that we can confirm that one name is probably not on the list. President Donald J. Trump. Why would I make such an assertion? The deep state and the fake news want to destroy him by making up all manner of false charges. This would be an actual charge that would destroy his reputation. Either way, why would the world's most prolific pedophile be meeting with the CIA? Is it possible that there were some very shady deals going on? Identifying as blind. I made a video a little while back in my early days on YouTube commenting on how this gender dysphoria is going to get worse. Specifically, I compared it to people who identify as children and thus live as children, people who identify as another ethnic group and live as such, but this is somehow never cultural appropriation or blackface. Now we have a woman who intentionally blinded herself because that is how she identifies. Physicians take an oath to do no harm. However, this particular trend, while painful to watch and seeing doctors respond in opposition is good, this was all inevitable. When we have doctors that chop off perfectly good body parts for profit, this was just a matter of time.
These surgeries make a lot of money. So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000. A patient just on routine hormone treatment, who I'm only seeing a few times a year, can bring in several $1,000s, so that requires a lot of visits and labs. It actually makes money for the hospital. And female to male bottom surgeries, these are huge money makers. Again, I think this has to be an underestimate. If they're quoting around $20,000 for a phalloplasty, there's been different things that I've read that said it could be up to $100,000. Dr. Winokur, who's our surgeon, says that there's entire clinics where the entire clinic is supported just by their phalloplasties, and that is like a fraction of the surgeries that they're doing. These surgeries are labor intensive, they require a lot of follow-ups, they require a lot of OR time, and they make money. They make money for the hospital.
It is interesting. What is on the fringes of society today becomes mainstream tomorrow. How long before doctors that oppose doing this surgery are called bigoted?
'Twas never a matter of if, only when.
All the gays wanted to do was get married. And now photographers are sued if they do not use their personal talents and professional resources to endorse the marriage. Disavowing Dylan Mulvaney. Anheuser-Busch's CEO is disavowing Dylan Mulvaney, saying that this was not an official campaign.
Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
Yet, it was. We live in a world where companies are catering to less than 1% of the world's population and turning off more than half of the population as a result. Even Costco cannot give Bud Light away. People are getting sick and tired of being preached to by these woke corporations. I spoke with one of the clerks about this at my local grocery store, and he had an interesting note to share. While there are still some people buying Bud Light, he is having to stock a significantly smaller amount from backstock. In essence, what is put on the shelf seldom moves. Furthermore, he tells me that there is none even in backstock. The official reason for this is that the vendor is not coming, but the store has several other brands that are in backstock. Go woke, go broke. Banning gas stoves. Not too long ago, Republicans and conservatives warned that environmentalists were trying to ban gas stoves over imaginary global warming. Global warming, something that will kill us all, even if the models never come to fruition. Also, remember when Democrats and liberals called this fear-mongering?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Well, New York is banning gas stoves in new homes and businesses 7 stories or less starting in 2026. They must be electric to be up to code. Since most people are connected to the electrical grid, the government can shut down heating during the winter if someone is problematic. If, however, you have your own supply of propane on site, you can still heat your home or business. It all comes down to both money and control.
Just follow the money.
Our own government is the biggest existential threat to this or any other generation. The debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is fast approaching and neither side is giving an inch. Brandon just wants to spend into oblivion and then kick the can down the road. McCarthy is willing to raise the debt ceiling, but only if it is tied to spending cuts. Imagine 2 people driving down the road at 100 miles per hour and suddenly they both crash into a wall. Now imagine that one of the drivers decides to drop his speed to 90 miles per hour before they hit the wall. Both drivers still die with little change. Now imagine the wall is a little further up. Now one driver is going at 100 miles per hour and the other is driving at 90 miles per hour, but the second decides to slow down to 80 miles per hour. Again, both are going to die. However, what if the wall is even further back and the second driver decides to keep slowing down? Eventually, the second driver will be slow enough to survive the crash. And eventually, the second driver will be slow enough to walk away from the crash. We do not know when the collapse is going to be here. But without slowing down on spending, none of us will survive. Troops to the border. Title 42 is a border policy that is a relic of the China virus reaction. It was, however, a symbolic way of slowing down the human and drug traffickers. Now that it is ended, Brandon is sending troops to the border. Wait a minute. That is what President Trump suggested. It seems to me that it would be a lot easier to just build the wall. After all, last I checked, we still have to guard the materials for the wall that are just collecting dust. Converting at SatanCon. The prophet Ezekiel is one of my favorite prophets because he preached directly to the devil. If you want to read it for yourself, go to Ezekiel 28 and start at verse 11. Either way, SatanCon was held in Boston and was supposedly one of the largest gatherings of Satan worshippers in the world. A group of evangelical Christians went in and started soul winning. According to them, they won over 100 people to Jesus while they were there. If these men and women had made a wrong move, who knows what could have happened to them. Either way, they have great faith and probably strong guardian angels as well. We are at war and cannot be afraid to go into battle. Sanders confiscates wealth. What do you do if you are a wealthy man in America? Normally, you would find ways to make more wealth. There are 2 ways to do this. 1, you could go to the government and bribe legislators and bureaucrats until you get what you want. 2, you could expand your business and create more jobs to grow your wealth. Bernie Sanders now wants to confiscate forcibly from anyone who has enough money to be a billionaire. How long until this proposal is lowered to millionaires? Would he support the bill now that it targets him? Is this proposal going to be adjusted with inflation? Sanders will answer none of these questions. And I can hear you typing away and saying that it is not a law and it is just a proposal. But how long before it is policy under the Democrats?
'Twas never a matter of if, only when.
Either way, people who are slowly gaining wealth that run the risk of becoming a billionaire will just stop investing jobs into the economy rather than have their money stolen. The problem with socialism is that you always run out of other people's money. Men in women's cells. James O'Keefe and his team have done it again. They have found more evidence about the crimes being done to women in the prisons of Washington state. We now know that there were men that were convicted of rape, child pornography, and the like. Naturally, these men were put into men's prisons where they were beaten, because even criminals have a low view of people like that. Then the men realized that if they identified as women, they could be transferred somewhere that they would have a biological advantage. Now, with the help of the ACLU, they sue for sex change operations. Meanwhile, women there who actually need medical care are pushed to the side. The same men that get transferred repeatedly try to get the women pregnant so that they can get a $1 million baby. And to top it all off, the Attorney General will not be lifting a finger. Another trumped-up charge. Another day, another woman that comes forward claiming that a man in a position of power raped her. Notice that they always seem to come forward years, and in some cases decades later. None of them go to the police right away. But wait. It is almost as if they either are waiting until the charge can bring the most damage, or these charges are just made up. Look, I honestly do not know much about this case, but at this point it is becoming a pattern. We know that our justice system is corrupt and riddled with flaws and is probably rigged here as well. And with the emergence of deepfakes, you can honestly not even trust your own eyes and ears anymore. Mocking CNN on their own network. CNN decided that the best use of their resources was to hold a town hall with President Trump. As the frontrunner for the Republican ticket, the American people want to hear from him. At said town hall event, he got standing ovations. The crowd laughed at his jokes. And even when addressing a smaller group, no one was buying the crud that CNN was selling. In short, CNN was humiliated. To make matters worse, every liberal pundit attacked CNN for giving President Trump a voice. CNN's new ownership is trying to revive the brand, but that is going to be tough. However, all that is needed to revive the brand is to no longer be a member of Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird is here to remind you to never question the official narrative. But that will never happen.
Maybe I'm just blowing smoke.
Oh, I almost forgot. Some rich guy was appointed as the ruler of a nation without even running. And for some reason Americans are supposed to care.
Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And if you enjoyed this content, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. And also don't forget to follow me on social media.